name is Dave Johnson. I'm the owner of the Spread Eagle Tavern. We are located in the small little town of Hanoverton, Ohio, northeastern Ohio, right on Route 30, probably about 40 miles due east of Canton. The history of this old tavern is quite remarkable. It dates back to the early days of the Sandy and Beaver Canal, and that was a canal that connected the Ohio River in East Liverpool, Ohio, with the Ohio Erie Canal over in just south of Canton. Our canal was 70 miles long. There were 90 locks that brought the water up and lowered it down to the two different levels of the creeks that, or the river systems it hooked into. And here in Hanoverton, we are at the summit. So this is the highest point on the canal. And this town became really a stop, one of the main stops on the canal system. And so this tavern house was built during the heyday of that canal back in 1837. It's got tremendous history with the canal, lots of history on the Underground Railroad. This little town was an important stop on the Underground Railroad. Many of the homes up and down the street have still today secret passageways where slaves were hidden by day, and then they'd run by night onto the next safe haven town. The architecture is another story in and of itself. When we bought the building in 1988, we were told that if we could find the architectural books of Asher Benjamin, who was one of the leading federal period architects in America at the time, that if we could find his books, we'd find the layout and the design of this very tavern house. That this was sort of a archetypical federal period tavern house, or even a townhouse. You'd see this kind of structure if you go into old Philadelphia, old Boston, some of the early colonial cities in America. In the downtown areas, there are lots of old townhouses built in this style. We went to work looking and found the original books of Benjamin, and sure enough, the fireplace mantles, the casings around the windows and the doors throughout the building, all are illustrated in this famous architect's books. You have great history, you have tremendous architecture, and then of course the third and most important quality would be to have a restaurant with fine dining and exceptional service. We think we've met that test as well. One of the earliest concerns that we had with being out here in the middle of nowhere, getting the kind of caliber of staff that would be required to make this a first-rate restaurant, and we've been very fortunate. My head chef that's here today, he's been with us for 17 years, and I hired him right out of the Culinary Institute of Pittsburgh, and he was started out as an extern, so started right on with us, and he's grown in the position and really he's a fabulous culinary artist, and at the same time a good manager that knows how to run a kitchen. And all that's been learned, as he worked here over the last 17 years. And lots of other great staff. This is a farming community. We have a school right up the road, and I get the cream of the crop of young kids, young boys and girls that want to start out working in the kitchen and then move into being a busboy or a busgirl, and then as they get up into their college years, they work here waiting tables. You can make pretty good income doing that as a sort of secondary income, and so we've been very fortunate. This is our 30th year in business. My father, who's illustrated in that painting, is no longer with us. This was really my father and my mother's creation. They bought the building in 1988, and they undertook a complete and total restoration of this property. Took all the walls down to the stud walls, and all the fireplace mantles, all the casings, everything that you see was disassembled and taken off-site and refinished. And the outside of the building, the bricks were all repointed. Of course, inside we had to rewire, we had to replumb, We had to refortify the structural part of this center part of the building, which today is 180 years old. We added on to the back of the building. There had been a fire here about 100 years ago that burned off one section of the building. So my dad excavated and found the original foundations for that part of the building, and we reconstructed that. And then we added a new dining room onto the back, which is where the old livery stable was. So we have rooms in the front of the house that are very formal with high ceilings, and as you work your way to the back of the house, it becomes more rustic and less formal. So there's all sorts of different dining feelings that you can have here in any one of the 7 dining rooms that we have. Fireplace in every room, working fireplaces. They've all been rebuilt. And so it was a really incredible restoration project. That in itself is a whole nother story. It took 2 years to restore it, and we opened on my dad's birthday, October 2nd, 1990. And so we're coming up on the 30th. Throughout the building are lots of memorabilia and photos that tell the story of the building. This is the story of Asher Benjamin, who I told you was the architect and of this original building, and we've named all the rooms after historic figures, and this front parlor here is named for Benjamin. There are 7 dining rooms throughout the building, and they range in size from small intimate dining rooms like this, that these chairs and tables can be pulled together for one small little dinner table, so you can reserve the room just for yourself or casual dining. And another dining room here. This is called the Taft dining room. It was named after the famous Taft family from here in Ohio. And all the antiques in the building, for example, this corner cupboard was made here in Columbiana County, and an antique dealer came to us. It's a signed piece, and so almost anything that was from this area we were interested in securing, so you'll see lots of stuff like that. This is a wonderful little courtyard out here. Really one of the nicest spots in the house to dine. It's surrounded all the way around by the historic structures of the building. Even these are the original windows, hand-blown wavy glass, the original sashes even. We went to great lengths to try to preserve the building and keep it as much like it was when it was original as possible. Now this is called the Hanover Room. The original town of Hanoverton had to be changed, or started out originally as Hanover, and then when the postal system came in, they found out that there was another Hanover, Ohio that was like a year older than ours. So we had to change our name to Hanoverton. So we named this room after the original town that was here, Hanover. And all the pictures on these walls are pictures of early Hanoverton. Here's one of the earliest pictures of Plymouth Street. Back in the day, you can see the gas lanterns there, and the old brick sidewalks, but dirt roads. That's the tavern house itself right there. There's the Swearingen General Store, which was in downtown Hanoverton. Here's an image of the Sandy and Beaver Canal that came right through this town. It was really the whole reason that the Spread Eagle was built. And there were a couple of inns in town in addition to the Spread Eagle. This is called the Mansion House Hotel. You can see it's like 3 times the size of the Spread Eagle. And they had a fire there in 1918, and it burned, not only burned the hotel down, but it burned the entire downtown of Hanoverton to the ground. In a terrible fire. And here's the fire department. That's why it burned. And this tells the story here. Here's again, you could spend hours just looking at the artifacts on the walls. These are the shareholders that owned the stock in the Sandy and Beaver Canal. They were from Hanoverton, Ohio. These are bills of ladings for shipments that were sent on the canal boats that left here in Hanoverton. A daughter of the original owners of the tavern. It's Grace Nicholas and her brother Alcinous. Here we peeled away the wall just to show the original beam and pin construction. And this is, again, 1830s architecture. And that's the original slatted, clapboard walls. And we put this plexiglass here just to show you how the original construction was. That would be behind all the plaster that you see here, but we thought it was interesting. We have 5 guest rooms here in the inn. This is the Martin Van Buren room. All of the rooms are named after historic figures, but Van Buren was President of the United States in 1837 when the tavern was built. And they all have private little bathrooms and off of every bedroom. This is actually the smallest room in the house. And it was, interestingly, it was the holding room when Vice President Dick Cheney visited. And his security wanted him to be away from everybody, so they came in the side door and up the back stairs, and he sat in this room. This room had all wiring put in here for his special phones and special security lines. Even he was here for about an hour, but this was his holding room. This is the Hannah dining room. Again, one of the 7 dining rooms that we have, and it's named after Marcus Alonzo Hannah, who's pictured on this wall. He's probably the least known person in Columbiana County, but the most famous. He was known as the maker of presidents back in the late 1800s, and his family and he were one of the largest coal miners in the country. And he also owned the streetcar business in Cleveland, and he owned interests in banks and many businesses. And in 1896, he was the Republican National Chairman that elected William Mckinley as president. Mckinley is featured right here in this lower right-hand photo. And these are all of Ohio's presidents. Ohio had more presidents than any other state except Virginia. And so we've sort of commemorated this room after the famous Hannah family. All the political bosses back in the day, and that's Mark Hannah sitting at the head of the table. And he advised McKinley, who was running against William Jennings Bryan, who was one of the greatest speakers of the day. And McKinley was not such a good speaker. And Hannah recognized that, and he said, "Don't you dare debate him. We're going to run the front porch campaign, and we will bring the multitudes of people to you in Canton, Ohio, and then we will orchestrate that message through all the major newspapers and media outlets in the country through the political structure that he'd set up." So it was a fabulous historical lesson in campaigns. And the Hannah's, Mark Hannah's grandfather, Benjamin Hannah, owned the Sandy and Beaver Canal, which came through here, as I indicated, and was the whole reason that this tavern was built. So lots of the Hannah family in Columbiana County. This is the McKinley dining room. It's set up for a party. It can be set this way. It can be set with individual tables, or one table right down the middle of the room. There's lots of flexibility. This is named after the McKinley family, although President McKinley was not from Columbiana County. His parents were, and his grandparents, and the picture below there is a stone house that's now called Camp McKinley. It's the Boy Scout of America post here in Columbiana County, just down the road from here. And that was where McKinley's family were from. So they have roots here in Columbiana County as well. This is called the Lincoln Room. It's one of the 5 guest rooms in the house. Here's sort of an interesting thing on the wall here. This is a past of Ford's Theater the night Lincoln was assassinated, and the play was Our American Cousin. And you know, of all the artifacts we have throughout the building, it's remarkable. We've never had anything taken here, and that's kind of nice. Wonderful, intricate fireplaces are of the Asher Benjamin design, and our primary business, the family business, is Summitville Tiles, and we redid all the tile work around the fireplaces in every room in the house. And these are hand painted tiles that were adapted from, many of them from Williamsburg tile patterns. And this has a nice big bathroom, claw tub, and again, fireplace in every room in the house. This is one of my favorite fireplaces. This is Jefferson here, unite or die, the original 13 colonies in the form of a serpent, and all the symbols of the American Revolution done on tile. And again, bathroom adjoining with, again, magnificent fireplaces in every room in the house. The Washington room, out of Asher Benjamin's book, and this is the actual fireplace design for this fireplace. And even all the wallpaper, all the prints, everything you see is of the original period of this tavern. That is a bidet, which is like sort of a miniature, how do we want to say it? Like a miniature bath. That you can look it up, and you'll see this design on either side of one of the window bays, and all these different designs are incorporated throughout the building. And look at this wonderful stairway. You're looking 5 stories down. Actually 4 stories down, not including the basement, but 4 stories with an open staircase. This was one of the fights we had with the state building code. They wanted this to be covered up and closed off, and we said we can't do that. This is, this is part of history, and we've gone to great lengths to have everything in this building remain historically correct. This is, we call this the Patriots Tavern Room. And this is more or less a service bar. People can sit here, but generally it's a service bar. This is a map of the original canal, the Sandy and Beaver Canal that came through Columbiana County, and Spread Eagle and Hanoverton are right in the center between the mouth and the tail of the canal system. We were one of 5 canals in Ohio, and our canal was the only one that was privately owned. All the others were owned by the state. This is a rare, very rare Revolutionary War flag. And we have, there is an example of an 18th century kitchen fireplace. So it's a cooking fireplace with bake ovens on the side, all with flues that are in working condition. This area was the part that burned off 100 years ago. And we excavated and found the original foundations for this room and reconstructed it. And we have Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson gracing the walls. This is really the coolest part of the tavern. This is known as the Rathskeller. Watch your step. This is our lower bar area. This is open on Fridays and Saturdays. And it's pretty busy on weekends. And if you're having a private party, of course, we'd open it up anytime. And then you're going down into the Rathskeller itself. This was all reconstructed. This is a vaulted brick ceiling, and it's designed in the way that an 18th century or even a 17th century wine cellar, which is what Rathskeller means in German, This is the way an early wine cellar would have been constructed. You're stepping down into the lower, below the frost zone, and so the temperature in a room like this would be like a constant 50 degrees, and which would be perfect for wine. But you can, obviously you can dine down here. You know, we've had dinner parties down here myself where you really, with the candles lit, a few glasses of fine wine and a fine culinary presentation, and you feel like you're in another century in another part of the world. You don't feel like you're in Hanoverton, Ohio. This area is called the Gavers Rathskeller because in the restoration of this building, my father tore down many old buildings to salvage the building materials. And one of the houses we tore down was the home of Gideon Gavers, who had a very big old brick house in the little crossroad, little tiny little village of Gavers. Not even a village, it's more or less a crossroad, but there is a sign that says "Welcome to Gavers." And that house was pretty much falling in. We bought the house, tore it down, took all the brick back to our factory, refired all this brick, and then reconstructed this whole area. So these are 200-year-old handmade brick that have been repurposed and put back into what you see here. And this is a picture of the Gavers house. These are just stories, you know, anyone that was famous from this county. Here's Harvey Firestone was from Columbiana County. This is a write-up about him and his life over in Columbiana. Part of the fun of it is, you know, it's supposed to be like it was 150 years ago. So when you're walking through here and you want to illuminate something, you can do it just like this. Harvey Firestone, born 100 years ago this week on a farm in Columbiana. And here's a story on the history of Somerville tiles. That's me standing in the clay mine at our factory, near our factory. And that was a story that was in the Plain Dealer some time ago. But and here is the home of Gideon Gavers that was built in 1802. And by the time we got it, it was literally falling in. My dad tore the house down, salvaged all the brick, all the hand cut stone, and repurposed all of it into this building project.
I love it.
And this is sort of a mock slave tunnel. I told you about the Underground Railroad, and this is pictures on the wall. This is one of our neighbors. This is Dr. James Robertson, who lived in one of the historic homes next door. And this was his father, who was the Reverend James Robertson, and he was the leading abolitionist in this part of the country, and was responsible for harboring a lot of the slaves and rescuing them and taking them to safety. This is a photo of Edwin Gill, who was the chief engineer of the Sandy and Beaver Canal system. And Guilford Lake, which is right up the road from here, was known as Gill's Ford. Most people don't know that, but that was built by the canal as a reservoir to feed water into the canal system. And he was the engineer that designed all of that.
Makes for a spooky scene.
Here's a picture of, or a death mask. That's an original death mask of Pretty Boy Floyd, who was public enemy number 1 in 1933. And he was hiding out here in Columbiana County and was captured and killed here in this county. And there's a ceramic company down in Wellsville that made the original death mask, and I think there were 3 of them made, and they gave me one. They said, you should have this hanging in the walls of the Spread Eagle. Hi there. Give a little tour here today. Was a teacher for 36 years in the Salem City school system, and he ran in the 1936 Olympics. He roommated with Jesse Owens, and that's, you know, who Hitler turned his back on for beating all the Germans. The old and the add-ons, and then this building next door was original and adjoining but not connected, and we knocked holes through the walls and tied it together. This is a working smokehouse here where we smoke a lot of the foods that we serve. Here was a painting I had commissioned of a collage of all the historic buildings in the village. This is where Kaisers live, for example. And that's the canal coming through town. And it was supposed to be staged like on July 4th, a day when everybody would have been celebrating in the streets. And this was done by Don Getz, who's a Salem artist and became pretty well known. This is the best seat in the house, especially in the winter months. This is all the numbering of the tables in the building start here. This is table number 1. And for anniversaries and special occasions, especially in the winter months, because you're sitting here and you have a fireplace at table height. You have your own private fireplace. And it is just a very intimate gathering spot. We call the barn room, and we have horse stalls turned into table stalls. You know, more of a rustic setting. You can dine at this place any way you want. You can come in here in jeans and a sweater, or you can come, you know, dressed up for something very special. We have all the above. This leads us all the way around in the back, and that's another stairway down into the Rathskeller. Everybody asks about the name of the building. How did we get the name Spread Eagle Tavern? And I'll show you here in the front. That is the original name of the tavern. And the name is owing to that stone marker up there between the 2nd and 3rd floor. You have 1837 for the year the tavern was built. And WR stands for Will Rhodes, who owned the tavern. And then you have the eagle with his wings spread wide, hence Spread Eagle. And in the eagle's mouth is a ribbon that says E pluribus unum, which is our national motto, which means from many, one. Americans are made up of folks that came from all over the world, come to America. And then W.R. Hollis was the sculptor, and his name is carved in stone as well. But in the front of the building you see this magnificent federal period architecture, and it is typically with a big front center doorway, and that fan is a fan of life. You can see the sun coming up with a stalk of corn growing as a symbol of life. And then you have a front hallway that goes all the way through the middle of the building with 2 rooms on either side of each hallway. First floor has the highest ceilings. The 2nd floor they're 6 inches lower, and the 3rd floor they're 3 inches lower. So the architecture is like a painting in perspective, from large to smaller, giving you the illusion that the building is taller than it is. So tremendous architecture. And this door on the side was the tavern side of the building, and you look at the stone in the bottom, there's more wear there than there is the main entrance. And then adjoining us, we call the salt box. And again, that was a part of the acquisition when we bought the tavern. It was adjoining but not connected. We've connected it, tied it together upstairs and downstairs. And then there are other wonderful historic buildings up and down this street that all date back to the canal period. And if you followed all the way down to the bottom of the street, you would run into the old Sandy and Beaver Canal. So we were just a walk a ways. Folks that were doing business on the canal would come up here, and this is where they would dine and where they would spend the night 180 years ago. member of the Ohio Restaurant Association ever since we opened the Spread Eagle Tavern back in October of 1990. And we have always felt that it was important to be a part of the key trade association that represents restaurants. And they do so much on behalf of especially the smaller restaurants like ours would be, and representing us in the legislature and doing so many things to market restaurants in Ohio. So it's really been an important part of our program here, and we're glad to be a part of it. A rare car. This is
awesome.
one of, it's number 4 of 8 that were made. It was made in Hollywood, California, and it was originally owned by Adolf Zucker, who owned Paramount Pictures. I want to personally welcome you if you've not been to the Spread Eagle Tavern before. If you're interested in history and you like architecture, and especially if you like fine dining, then the Spread Eagle Tavern is the place for you to come. I recommend you come out for dinner some night and spend the night. We have 5 dining rooms and 5 overnight guest rooms. It will be an experience you won't forget.